Sabbath school this morning. Today, I have a little pop quiz for you. How many of you believe that you are born with the abilities that you have, and while you can do things differently, that's more or less what you have? Let me see a raise of hands. How many believe that? Okay. How many of you believe that, yes, you are born with certain abilities, but you can also develop other abilities through education, hard work, and learning, and putting things into practice? How many of you believe that? I'm sorry?
And mostly a gift of God.
And mostly a gift of God? Yes, God gives us these gifts, right? How many of you believe that when God gives you a gift, that's the only gift you have? Very good. So for those of you on Zoom, Steve said it might start that way, but you have the ability to increase those talents, right? So this morning I want to talk a little bit about mindset and the gospel. So in the world of psychology and neurology, and neuroscience and stuff, they've studied people's brains, they've studied people's thought patterns and how they think and things, and they've come to a conclusion that there are two main mindsets. How many of you are familiar with those two main mindsets? Can anyone name them? All right, so there's the fixed mindset and there's the growth mindset, right? So when we talk about a fixed mindset, we're talking about a mindset that believes that really there's no change possible. You might be able to do some things differently, but inherently, bottom line, you can't change who you are. You can't change your intelligence. So you go, maybe in the second grade, you were tested for your IQ, and that's the IQ that you have the rest of your life. This would be a fixed mindset. Your abilities. You know, maybe you have a really good talent for playing the piano, and that's the only talent that you'll ever have. And while you might become the best piano player in the world, that's the only thing you can do. And without being a good pianist and without being number one, you're nobody. That would be a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset would also be someone who believes, well, I'm just a person who's lazy. I can't do anything. I tend to fail a lot, and I'm not even going to try, because if I fail, then I look bad, and let's just not go there. So oftentimes they won't expand their horizons and try new things, and so they're always trying to prove themselves, always trying. Someone with a fixed mindset, you'll notice, will always try to be the best at everything, and they internalize failure. So instead of saying, well, I failed at this, they say, I am a failure. Huge difference, right? Whereas someone with a growth mindset believes fundamentally we can change as we put in the work, and as we combine our efforts with God's efforts, and He combines His with ours, right? We're not stuck with that IQ score from second grade for the rest of our lives. We can change that. Our abilities, so you might have the talent for piano, but you can develop other abilities that you are interested in. These are all growth mindset things. A person with a growth mindset will cultivate and stretch themselves, so they're going to look at other ways that they can improve and become more useful to society, better able to reach other people for Christ, things like that. And if they make a mistake, they recognize, I have failed at this particular thing, but this is an opportunity for me to learn from it, grow from it, and do better next time. So, as I was thinking about this mindset, these two different mindsets, and, how does that apply in our lives as Christians? How does that apply to the gospel? How does that apply? The purpose of the Sabbath school class has 4 objectives. Can anyone tell me what those objectives are? Learn? That's actually, learning is, kind of the overall objective, but there's 4 specific objectives. Okay, so global missions. Anyone else? What are the other 3? Bible study, fellowship. Anyone name the 4th one? So prayer would go along with the Bible study, fellowship. Community outreach. So global missions, community outreach, Bible study, and fellowship are the 4 main objectives of the Sabbath school class. So, you can imagine someone coming in to learn with them having a fixed mindset, and it's going to be kind of difficult if they get rejected. Say if the church or the Sabbath school class decides they want to go knock on doors and hand out great controversies or something like that. If they get rejected, that could be kind of devastating to them. They take it very personal, right? Whereas someone with a growth mindset can look at that and say, well, maybe next time they'll be open to whoever comes knocking on the door next time. When I think about the Bible and the characters in the Bible, the biggest character in the Bible that I thought of who has this growth mindset and is not just has the growth mindset but initiated it is Jesus, right? So growth mindset can be, something internal, focused in on, your abilities, your things that God has given you. But more importantly, I feel like we should be able to look at others through a growth mindset. And I think as Christians, we do this quite easily with people who are not in the church. We think, oh, well, there's a potential person that we can share Jesus with and bring them into the church. Jesus did this a lot, right? We think of Matthew, the tax collector. I guess the antithesis of Jesus would be the Pharisees, right? So they would look at Matthew, the tax collector, and say, oh, he's a hopeless case. He sold out, right? And he went to work for the Romans, and just don't even talk to him. If you talk to him, you guys are all sinners, right? That was their mindset. They had that very fixed mindset, whereas Jesus came along and said, I see potential here. I see areas where this guy can grow and be a mighty warrior for the gospel. So, when we look through the Gospels, when we look through the whole Bible, I think of Moses. Moses started off with kind of a fixed mindset. God had to take him and change his mindset over 40 years in the desert living with sheep, right? And then he was able to use him in a mighty way. I think of the disciples that Jesus called, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Each one of them was able to be changed by Jesus. Think of Mary Magdalene, the Pharisees and people looked at her as a terrible sinner, and Jesus looked at her and saw something different, right? He saw potential in her. Peter. When Peter first joined up with Jesus, he was hard-headed, stubborn, a loudmouth, and then after he was converted, after his mindset changed from that fixed mindset to the growth mindset, he became a powerhouse. Another example is Paul. Right, so we can go through the Bible and see all these different examples of how God used people. He took them right where they were at with that fixed mindset and everything, and he was able to transform them into having a growth mindset and be able to become powerful men and women of God. We also have some examples of people who decided not to change, because we always have the choice, right? We have Judas. Judas came to Jesus, we're told, right? Jesus didn't necessarily go out and pull him in, but Jesus gave him the opportunity, and he showed him how he could change his mindset. And in the end, he decided to keep that fixed mindset, and Satan was able to use that to destroy his life, not only his life here on earth, but his eternal life. Jesus was always looking for the, helping the blind, the lame, the sick. When people would see impossibilities, well, there's nothing we can do about that. Like, I think about the widow of Nain and her son as they were coming out. She was getting ready to bury her only son, right? And Jesus saw a possibility there. So Today I want to encourage us to look at not only people outside of the church or people, as we think of, going world missions or things like that, but, what about the person sitting next to you or the pew behind you or the pew in front of you? How many times do we have that fixed mindset with our brothers and sisters? It's easy to have it with people who are out of the church, right? Because Jesus had it with the people that were out of the church, right? Jesus was always calling people to him. But oftentimes we forget once they have come into the church and once they are part of our family, it's so much easier to look at them with, oh, they've been that way for years, they're never going to change, right? But we need to switch our mindset from that fixed mindset of they're never going to change to, you know what? They have the choice. We obviously can't choose for them, but there's always hope. Until they're dead, there's hope, right? So I encourage you this week to search your hearts and ask God, what kind of mindset do I have with you, with my personal relationship with you, and my relationship with those not only in my immediate family, but in my church family, and then my community, and then the world. All right? So I think it's time for our lesson. I'm not sure who's teaching it. Okay. And Barry, is that correct? Okay.